My DIL called me the maid at brunch. I handed her the mortgage keys. It was a beautiful Saturday morning, the kind you wish would last forever. We were at a fancy restaurant for brunch. My son, Michael, my daughter-in-law, Jessica, my daughter, Sarah, and her husband, David. The table was set with pristine white linen, and light streamed in through the large bay window. Jessica was in her element, holding court, laughing a little too loudly. She had a certain kind of confidence that I once found endearing, but had slowly begun to realize was a cloak for a profound sense of entitlement. Then the waitress came over. She smiled at me and asked, "Is there anything I can get for the lady at the head of the table?" Jessica, without missing a beat, scoffed and said, "Oh, you mean the maid? She's just here to watch the kids." My son laughed a little, and Sarah looked down at her plate. The blood rushed to my head, not in anger, but in cold, quiet clarity. That was the moment. That was the final insult. And in that moment, I knew she had just forfeited everything. I wouldn't shout. I wouldn't cry. I would simply show her the true meaning of power. If you're watching, subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from. My home, the one my late husband Robert and I built together, was a beautiful, sprawling colonial with a large front lawn and a back garden that was my pride and joy. It had always been the center of our family. 5 years ago, after Robert passed, Michael and Jessica were struggling to find a place big enough for their new family. I made a deal with them. They could live in the house for a nominal fee, a fraction of the market rate, just enough to cover the property taxes and some minor maintenance. They agreed, and they moved in. I moved into a smaller condo nearby, thinking it was a temporary arrangement until they got on their feet. 3 years passed. They had 2 beautiful children. The house was now theirs in their minds. Jessica had even repainted the foyer without asking. She started treating me not as the owner or even as their mother, but as a guest in my own home. Every time I came over, she would leave a list of chores for me to do, small things like straighten the garden shed or organize the pantry. I didn't mind at first. I did it because it was my house and I loved keeping it up. But her attitude shifted. She'd say things like, "It's so nice to have a live-in helper, isn't it, Michael?" The maid comment at brunch was just the culmination of 1,000 small cuts. After the brunch comment, I couldn't pretend anymore. I had a private conversation with Michael a few days later. I sat him down and said, "Michael, I'm concerned about how Jessica treats me. She's disrespectful. She called me the maid in front of everyone at brunch." Michael sighed, his face going blank. "Mom, you know how she is. She was just joking. She's under a lot of stress with the kids and her new job." He dismissed it, just like he always did. He defended her, not me. That was the last shred of hope I had. I had given my son and his family a $1.2 million home for almost nothing, and this was the thanks I got? I realized he was as complicit in this as she was. The plan that had been a vague idea in the back of my mind now became a concrete, non-negotiable mission. I had to protect myself and my dignity. I immediately called my longtime family lawyer, Mr. Sterling. He had been Robert's friend and our legal counsel for over 30 years. He was a man of quiet authority and precise legal language. "Mr. Sterling," I began, my voice calm, "I need to talk to you about the house." He knew exactly what I meant. He had advised me against the arrangement from the beginning. He said, "Eleanor, I have all the original documents right here. I trust this is a decision you have considered carefully." I told him it was. We set a meeting for the next day. This was a man who understood leverage, who understood the cold, hard logic of the law. He had handled my estate, my late husband's business, and he knew the full extent of my financial power. He would be the hammer I needed. At his office, surrounded by stacks of legal files, Mr. Sterling laid out the documents. He reminded me of the specific agreement we had made. He said, "You see, Eleanor, we drew up a lease-to-own agreement. It wasn't just a verbal understanding. I had forgotten the specifics." He pointed to a clause 17.3, titled Conditions of Sale. It stated that for the option to purchase the property to be valid, All rental payments and property maintenance fees, which amounted to a meager $1,500 a month, had to be paid in full and on time for a period of 5 years. He then showed me the ledger. In the 3 years they had lived in the house, they had made 18 late payments. They were now over $15,000 in arrears, a sum they never had to pay because I never sent an invoice. They've technically been in breach of the contract for years, Eleanor. The agreement is void. You can terminate the lease with 90 days' notice, with or without cause. The midpoint twist was simple and elegant. They thought they were building equity, but they were actually living in a house with no claim to it on a lease they had already broken.